Alan Kulwicki was a former NASCAR Winston Cup Series driver in the late 80s and the early 90s. He was born in Greenfield, Wisconsin. When Alan Kulwicki was just a young child, he would lose both his mother and grandmother before he was even in the 7th grade. Then 1 year later, he would lose his only brother to hemophilia. Despite facing these tragedies as a kid, it would not deter him from his love of racing. He would begin racing karts at just the age of 13. As he got older, he would race on dirt and paved tracks all throughout the 70s until he got his big break driving an ASA beginning in 1979. During his time in ASA, Alan Kulwicki would finish with 5 wins, 12 poles, and would finish 3rd in the standings in 1982 and 1985. In 1984, Alan Kulwicki would catch another big break as he was signed to drive for Ed Whitaker in his number 7 Hardee's car. In his debut at Milwaukee, he would start 2nd and finish 2nd. His success in the Busch Series would catch the eye of Cup Series car owner Bill Terry, who offered him to drive in several Cup Series races for his team in 1985. Soon after, he would sell most of his belongings, including some of his short track racing equipment, to move approximately 900 miles all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina. What's crazier is that he showed up to Bill Terry's race shop unannounced, basically saying, "Hey, I'm here to race." And soon after they would make 5 starts in the Winston Cup Series in 1985 with a highest finish of 13th. 1986 would be Alan Kulwicki's first full-time season in the Winston Cup Series. He would be competing for Rookie of the Year, but 14 races in, his car owner Bill Terry decided he wanted out of the sport and was pretty much going to shut down the team. Rather than calling it quits, Kulwicki decided he was just going to buy up the whole team and would go on to win the 1986 Rookie of the Year in the Winston Cup Series. The team would initially start off small, so small as a matter of fact that not only was Kulwicki the driver and the owner, but he was also serving as the team's crew chief and chief mechanic. That is something you will never see in today's NASCAR. Kulwicki didn't just want to compete on the Winston Cup Series circuit, he wanted to eventually win a Winston Cup Series title. Former team members described Alan Kulwicki as an absolute control freak, but it was in a good way. Just listen to what they have to say.
Trying to win a championship as an owner-driver makes Kulwicki a throwback to the early days. But he also brings a new approach to NASCAR.
Alan was probably the one guy that started bringing the engineering side into NASCAR. That was his goal, was to make sure that NASCAR went that direction.
I tell guys today, he set race cars up with 4 grain scales on a 4-foot level. Tape measure. Grain scales. You can't even go to a grain place now and find a grain scales.
And him being an engineer, man, he was driven.
He was a control freak. He would ride you until you wanted to just quit. And you'd get mad because we can't do any better, but you say to yourself, "Oh yeah, watch this. Well, I'm gonna prove it to him." And that was his way of getting more out of you. And I always call us a bunch of misfit toys, because that's what we were. We were just a bunch of misfits.
This hard work and determination would eventually pay off in 1988 as he would hire Paul Andrews as his brand new crew chief, and the team would finally score their first ever win at Phoenix. After his win, he celebrated by doing something that was considered pretty odd at the time.
To celebrate his first win in Cup, Kulwicki tips his hat to his heritage and circles the track backwards. His first Polish victory lap.
That victory lap there is something I had thought about for a long time, and I wanted to do something special and never be another first win, and I just wanted to give them something to remember me by.
The team would slowly improve, but prior to 1992, 1990 was perhaps their best season. He would score 1 win, 5 top 5s, 13 top 10s, a pole, and an average finish of 14.6 and finished 8th in the standings. Unfortunately, 1991 was considered a down year. Despite scoring a win at Bristol and 4 poles, consistency was a major issue that season, and he would fall to 13th in the standings. So you can imagine that heading into the 1992 season, if you said that Alan Kulwicki was going to win the Winston Cup Series title, you would have probably gotten laughed at.
By 1992, Kulwicki had won twice more. His race team had earned respect. Earning a championship was another matter.
He would have been considered a dark horse at best going into the 92 season?
Oh, yeah. Ask any reporter today, and they'll tell you he was in their top 2 or 3 list. Ask any reporter at that time, and they'll tell you he wasn't even in their top 40 list.
Here's as if Alan Kulwicki will win his 4th Winston Cup race here this afternoon. Here comes the white flag. 1 more lap to go for Alan. Greenfield, Wisconsin driver who first win came in his 85th start at Phoenix. He was the 1986 Winston Cup Rookie of the Year. He's in turn number 3, now in turn number 4. The Ford win streak continues. Bill Elliott's streak is broken. Alan Kulwicki wins the Food City 500.
The 2 races in a row in Bristol for Kulwicki. He won the race at night last August.
Again, our next Winston Cup telecast will be on Saturday morning, July 4th, for the Pepsi 400 from Daytona International Speedway. My thanks to Ned Jarrett, Benny Parsons, John Kernan, and Jerry Punch for their help for the telecast this afternoon. We'll see you next Saturday night on Speed Week at 7:30. For now, this is Bob Jenkins with congratulations to Alan Kulwicki. Thanks for joining us. So long, everyone.
When Kulwicki crashed at Dover with 6 races left to go, he was 278 points behind. So began one of the greatest comebacks in racing history, finishing 5th at Martinsville, 4th at Phoenix, 2nd at Charlotte. By the final race at Atlanta, Kulwicki trailed overall leader Davey Allison by just 30 points.
Folks, we are entering one of the most exciting races ever in Winston Cup racing.
The green flag waves and the Hooters 500 is underway.
Davey Allison needed to finish 5th or higher to clinch the Cup title. It was not to be.
Oh, crash! Davey Allison is in the crash, Bob!
Once we knew Davey was out completely, we knew for sure we had a legitimate shot at this.
With 75 laps to go, it was now a 2-car race for the championship between Kulwicki and Bill Elliott.
I'm looking at 2 guys right now trying desperately to win a race and a championship.
Winning the race was one goal, but leading the most laps was also crucial. It carried a 5-point bonus, points both drivers desperately needed to win the overall championship.
He knew what the point situation was. We didn't even have to tell him that if we lead the most laps and finish 2nd, we could win. And he knew that.
Running out of gas, needing to pit, Kulwicki stayed on the track for 1 extra lap as the race leader.
Alan stays out there.
Yeah, he does. But he can't run out of gas down the front straightaway. He'll lose everything if he runs out now.
Hard to understand why they would even gamble. When they got to stop anyway, why would they gamble on going 2 or 3 more laps?
They told Alan to pit that time by. Their calculations are it may not make it back. They said, you got to come in. So now he will come around and come in this lap. And he let Bill go by. And now we'll watch for Alan Kulwicki to make it down pit road. How long it will take him to get gas only and be able to get back on the racetrack.
Can't make no mistakes. From Paul making the right calls to praying that the car stays together to Alan doesn't do something crazy. Unfortunately, we had a different circumstances. We didn't get the car full.
I'll never forget looking down there and watching him come down pit road at me and knowing I'm the only soul on pit road and TV and God and everybody's watching. I'm like, please don't screw up.
The gas can only go in as fast as I can open up the vent. And I think it was like 3 or 4 seconds of gas we had to have, and it wasn't even that.
Less than 4 seconds for fuel.
Man, could he have gotten enough fuel in that car in 3.5 seconds?
Well, I wonder about that, Jerry.
Alan Kulwicki is coming off of corner number 4, knowing that he's winning the championship. There's the checkered flag for Alan. He's the champion for 92.
Kulwicki would finish 2nd, but with those 5 bonus points, he won the championship by the slimmest margin in NASCAR history. He celebrated his greatest moment the only way he knew how.
And guess what? He's going to do it again.
6 years ago, I was just a little guy with a dream that moved down south with a pickup truck and a trailer. After running a few NASCAR races and dreaming about it for 10 years, I thought, well, maybe I was ready to take a stab at it. I hope that when 1993 is over, that the people at Winston, the people at NASCAR, and the competitors all look back and say, we were proud to have him represent us as our champion. Thank you.
Kulwicki was finally on top of the NASCAR world. It seemed like he had a lot left as a driver and certainly a lot more left as a car owner. But unfortunately, in 1993, the very next year, tragedy would strike.
Stock car racing's top driver from last year is dead. Alan Kulwicki, the 92 Winston Cup champion, was killed Thursday night when a private plane he was aboard crashed and caught fire near a highway in rural Tennessee. Officials say 4 others also died, 2 associates of Kulwicki's racing team and 2 pilots who were unidentified as of early Friday morning. It was rainy and foggy as the turboprop plane was on final approach to Tri-City Airport near Bristol in northeast Tennessee, site of this Sunday's Winston Cup race. FAA officials say it was on final approach just behind a plane carrying driver Dale Earnhardt when contact was lost at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The plane crashed behind a row of houses. There were no injuries on the ground.
That Friday morning, Alan Kulwicki's hauler would make one final lap around Bristol before leaving the racetrack. Kyle Petty still describes it as probably the most saddest thing he has ever seen in the sport. Now, had Alan Kulwicki lived, I am convinced that as a driver, he would have not won another title, but he would have won at least 10 or 15 more races. Now, as a car owner, I could still see Alan Kulwicki running a Monster Energy Cup Series team still to this day. In that case, a pretty cool scenario to see would have been Matt Kenseth driving for him in the Cup Series, since they're both from the state of Wisconsin, so I'm just saying, that would have been awesome. Today, Alan Kulwicki's legacy can be found in a lot of places. Since 1994, the University of North Carolina at Charlotte has awarded the Alan Kulwicki Memorial Scholarship to one incoming student each year. Bristol Motor Speedway also named its grandstands in turns 1 and 2 in honor of Kulwicki. Then in 2004, the NASCAR Busch Series at the Milwaukee Mile was named the Alan Kulwicki 250 in honor of him. Kulwicki would later be inducted into the International Motorsports Hall of Fame, and finally, Alan Kulwicki's success as an owner-driver sparked a small trend among NASCAR veterans. The likes of Jeffrey Bodine, Ricky Rudd, Bill Elliott, and Joe Nemechek all began racing teams shortly after his death. However, Tony Stewart became the first owner-driver since Kulwicki in 2011 to win a NASCAR Cup Series title. And finally, Alan Kulwicki's Polish victory lap, which he started, is still done by many NASCAR drivers after a win even today. Alan Kulwicki was 38. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Black Flags Matter. Catch you next time.